Hey, y'all. So, what if your self help journey was never about fixing yourself or even changing yourself? What if your journey was really just about finding your way back home? Have you ever woken up or sort of looked around and realized you've done all of the things? You've read the books, you've taken the courses, course after course, podcast after podcast, and you still feel like you're not done. You still feel like there's something out there you have yet to really attain. Or if you could just fix this one thing about yourself, then you'd be there. Well, welcome. Welcome to the rest of your story. I'm Lara Zuehlke, and I know this space so well, so very well. Like you, I've been walking this path of self-help for many, many years. But comes a time when you start to wonder, like, in this hustle to change, you just keep finding yourself bumping up against yourself. And deep down, you can't help but wonder, what if I just get to be me? What if I just get to be me? Now, I know that may sound paradoxical because the whole point of self help is to improve yourself, right? It's to get better, it's to heal and to do those things. And there's an important pathway of that. Self help has a very important path for us in our healing journeys. However, just like with everything, there comes a point in time when it's no longer about the next course or the next book. It is about you coming home to yourself. And that's why today we're talking about moving beyond self help. What is that step beyond self help? It's a term that I call self homecoming because here's the truth: you're not broken. There's nothing to fix. So, this idea of self help and improving yourself for me started really young. In the mid 80s, around that time period, when my mom would have to be at school early because she was a teacher, my dad would pack up my brother and sister and me into his 1971 avocado green Chevy truck. The cab of the truck was usually sprinkled with sawdust shavings from this wood mill where he worked. There would be Dr. Pepper cans and Snickers wrappers. And for many years, my dad loved listening to his AM radio. We had a single speaker, in the dashboard, and it would be Paul Harvey. He was a radio commentator back then. By the late 80s, my parents had discovered the power of positive thinking through their Nightingale Conant cassette tape club. So that meant while my friends were listening to New Kids on the Block and Janet and Michael and Paula, there I was listening to Zig Ziglar and Wayne Dyer and Rita Davenport talking about the power of your mind and changing your mindset, changing your life by the function of changing your thoughts. I was probably 13, 14, but something about this really landed for me. And this really laid the groundwork for me then to enter my 20s and 30s and 40s through The Secret and through all of the things, taking every class, teaching energy classes. I love this world because it's helped me become more of myself. It's helped me to shed layers that no longer serve me. However, there came a point in time a few years ago when I decided it was time to purge all of these books a little bit. So I took, a whole bunch of boxes to Half Price Books here in Austin, and I went to sell them, right? So I gave them to the clerk at the back, and I'm wandering around the store. Well, of course, where do I find myself but in the self-help aisle? And I just had to chuckle. And I thought, oh my God, I think I'm kind of a self-help junkie. Like, this is such a part of my being now. This is such a way for me to always be in this hustle of changing myself, of fixing myself, of finding things that are just a little wrong or just a little broken or just not quite right, and fixing myself with the latest book, the latest course. By a certain point, by midlife, I think, maybe that's perhaps just because where I am, but I do think there's an invitation after a while to start to release this idea of self help and just allow ourselves to be ourselves in our light, in our shadows, in all of us. One of the biggest lessons I've learned over this past season of my life is how to hold two or multiple things as true at the same time. That you can be broken and whole and holy. That you can feel like you're not enough and absolutely go rock it. That you can be really frustrated with yourself or have pockets of your life where you haven't forgiven yourself and see the glory and grace that you are. Learning how to hold ourselves in all of these spaces is this journey of self homecoming. And that is what we're here together to do. Because self homecoming isn't arriving at some perfect version of yourself, it's about gently returning with grace and with compassion to the person that you've always been underneath all the striving, underneath all the hustling, underneath all the perfecting and pleasing and performing. It's about asking, who was I before I decided I needed to change? Or who was I before I got the memo that I needed to change? That the world out there, perhaps my family, perhaps my social structures, perhaps my school, perhaps my church, wherever, you got the memo that you needed to change in order to fit in, to be loved. Who were you before that moment? That's the question that I've been sitting with in this season of my life, because that version of myself is still there. That little Lara is still in me. And for me, my little Lara was kind of a wild child. She loved to wander into the woods. She loved to go be off by herself playing, or maybe with my cousin Rhonda. We would go play in the woods and we would build forts with sticks. And I would come back at the end of the day and my elbows would have dirt in them. And I was so proud of myself. I was so independent and wild and fierce. I didn't care what I wore. I looked like a little boy. I wore baseball caps. I played softball. I was truly me. And somewhere along the way, I think for me, probably between the ages of 8 and 10, I got the memo that I needed to be different, that I needed to be less of myself. And so therefore, I started putting on the masks and all the roles that I would play. But this is part of the ethos of the princess. This is what the princess learns. The princess learns that the world out there gets to dictate and determine who she is or who she should be so that she can be saved, that she can be rescued, that she can be loved. But at some point, by midlife, the hustle stops working. We're tired. We're exhausted. We're burnt out. We're pissed off. We're just like, what is happening in my life? We may blame it on hormones, but there's something deeper in us wanting to awaken, wanting to be alive in us. But it's not out there to be acquired. It's within us to be expressed. And that's what we're here together to do, to explore, is what are these ways? What's inviting you home? So for most of us in this princess ideology, in this princess construct, we started the hustle really young, probably somewhere around elementary school. We learned who we needed to be in order to fit in. The role self, what psychologists will call the role self, the self that we put on, the roles that we played in order to fit in, to be loved, to survive. The role self, it's an adaptation. It's a natural part of how we develop. So it's not wrong or bad. We all do this. This is how we're wired. But at some point, we start to awaken. We start to realize that this role self isn't really all the things that we want it to be. So welcome self-help, right? As my friend calls Louise Hay, the gateway to self-help, right? The gateway drug. We find these authors and teachers, and they're so often well-meaning and well-served, and they play an important function for us to help us come to terms with these roles, to help us get to know our perfectionist, to help us get to a place of forgiveness, to help us learn to accept our bodies more, right? Learn how to use our voice more. But the thing is that about 15 years ago, my own self-help journey, in that process, I came across a teacher of saying that really, really didn't just hit for me. landed deeply in that way that sometimes the wisdom lands. It's a quote by Adashante, and it says, "Enlightenment is not a journey of becoming something. It's a journey of unbecoming who you are not." And the thing is that this self-help place is powerful. It's well-intentioned. It offers healing. It offers insight. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for all the work that I've done over these 40 years to get here now. But at some point, we may not even realize that we're stuck on the loop, that we're stuck on the hamster wheel of chasing the next fix. And in a way, this self help or spiritual growth can become just another mask that we wear, another version of ourselves that's still trying to achieve or please or perform or perfect. So the real shift is when you start to allow yourself to unbecome, to take off these layers, to take off the weights, not just the physical weight of these things that we wear, but the WAIT, the ways that we've been hamstrung and waiting for the perfect moment, waiting for the coast to be clear, waiting for permission. And if you missed that video that I did on permission, then be sure to check that out. So, y'all, this idea of self homecoming is the hallmark of the queen. It is the hallmark of where we are right now in midlife, of coming back to ourselves to start to question and explore what are the roles, what are the ways that I learned how to function in the world? How did I show up in a way that worked for a while, but that kept me distanced from my truest self, right? Because that's the other side of the coin. The role self is who we are as our princess. It's how we learn to function. It's how we learn to please and perfect and be loved. And in the journey of unbecoming, we can allow more space for our queens to emerge. So moving from the princess to the queen isn't about becoming someone new. It's about awakening to who you've always been underneath. Because once you stop looking outside of yourself for approval, you can start turning within. And in that permission video, I talk about space, right? As we come into our queendoms, we allow ourselves to start to occupy our own space energetically, physically, emotionally, mentally, financially, vocally, all the ways that we want to be in our sovereign selves. This is the journey that we're on. And self help is a really important starting point. It is the path that we go on for a while. Eventually, self help stops working because we're awakened enough. And that's when we can allow ourselves to move into self homecoming. So essentially, you become your own guru. You take all these lessons, all the lived experience, all the scars, all the bruises, all the tears, all the heartache, all the joy, and you allow yourself from that fount within you to use that, to metabolize that power, that wisdom in you, and allow that to be the fuel that moves you forward because it's not out there. It's not out there. Your power is never out there. Your permission is never out there. It's right here within you. As we close, I just invite you to really sit with that question of who were you before the world taught you that you needed to be different, before you decided you needed to be different. This journey for me has been about the past 10 to 12 years of really starting to dismantle some of the self-help, right? Ideology of perfecting and pleasing. But you can see I've been, been sort of caught up in this sort of self-help junkie world of like chasing the next thing. But I found the book Something More by Sarah Baum-Breckwith. That's how you pronounce her name. And she has you go back through your childhood and look at pictures you drew and things that you did, if you have access to them. If you don't, then maybe through Facebook or maybe you interview people who knew you as a little girl. You talk to people who knew you back then. Now, I get that not all of us had these rosy childhoods that we want to wander back into. So give yourself grace and space, right? You know what's right for you. Work with your therapist, work with your mental health professionals, work with your caregivers. But as you start to tiptoe back in, you will start to uncover pieces of yourself. You will start to find those moments and threads and kernels of your true self. And in that activity, years ago, I was in my parents' attic and I found this picture that I did in the third grade. Around this time, I think I started really putting on this role self. And I saw this, and at first I smiled because I thought, this is so adorable. But then, y'all, I just sat and wept. And the reason I wept is because when you see this picture, what do you notice? The symmetry, the perfection, the coloring inside the lines. Already by 9, 10 years old, I had determined that this is what art was. This was my expression. My expression was perfection. And guess what I've been working to dismantle for the past 30 years, 40 years, is this idea that I have to be perfect. So that's why you're going to see me show up here and not look great and be in my sovereign freaking self because I am not perfecting anymore. I need notes. I need my trapper keeper. I need the space and grace to show up here to be with you in my mess, to be alongside you in this journey because I don't have it all figured out. I don't have it all figured out, but I have decided that it is time that I get to be my own guru and that my voice matters and that somewhere along the way, even if just one of you benefits from this content, then it is all worth it to me because we need each other in this journey to remember, to straighten each other's crowns, to call ourselves back home into our sovereign selves. Because the ways of the princess are done, y'all. It is time for us to unbecome who we're not so that we can enlighten, we can lighten up, we can shed the roles, that we can express more of who we truly are. So if this lands for you, I invite you to hit subscribe, maybe share this with a friend who could use this content as well. But most of all, have a beautiful week, and I'll see you soon.